This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susmita Tota, Town Planner, sitting in for Jen Sheldon, the chairman of this meeting, who cannot make it today. It is now 12:04 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. The first order of business today is the approval of minutes from our regular April 20th meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Harold. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So motion passes unanimously. And the next order of business is the status of our priority actions. First on this is the 8-30G housing moratorium to initiate discussions with Stony Brook or create a plan of action to initiate discussions. I can give you an update, which is like there's no update at this time. We're waiting on hearing back from our mayor regarding this. Anybody else has anything to add to this item?
No.
Okay. So since the mayor is not present today, I will try to follow up with her and Chairman Jen Sheldon in the next few weeks to know the status of this. The next one is the accessory dwelling unit regulation development. I can give you a brief overview of what happened between the last meeting and now. I know the zoning commission has been working on a draft text amendment for this regulation. And the document was shared by Jay Habansky to all the members. I know last time at our meeting, Beth has requested to know more about where the changes were made to the existing ADU regulation. And so Jay has forwarded a document in which he included comments on what exactly is going to change. With that, I will ask Jay if he wants to add anything to this.
Thanks, Susmita.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I tried to add in some detail in some of the more, in some of the sections, given a bit of a rationale, and you know, it's can be somewhat of a challenge to get the rationale for every word change or every change for, as I've been instructed by the zoning commission to try to update this regulation. So I tried my best to kind of paraphrase what I felt to be the intent of the zoning commission and what their goals were. So yeah, added some more detail for the consideration of the partnership here. And, I think that, I know that the partnership has got a lot on their agenda just in general. And sorry, I was hearing an echo. I wasn't sure if someone was talking. I think what the zoning commission is looking for is, feedback on what they think might be appropriate for the town to consider as a change, or any guidance giving the partnership's expertise in their study in housing over the past few years. So, Harold, as the zoning commission chairman, if I left anything out or, if I'm missing any points that you think was, the goal or intent from the zoning commission, feel free to chime in.
Beth, I see that you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. First, just a very quick question is, were the changes that were circulated this morning shortly before this meeting, were those same as the ones that were previously circulated?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm unsure what was circulated this morning. I know that maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago, I had a phone call with Jen. She asked me to send those to her directly, that she would circulate to the commission. So I have not worked on any changes since maybe 2-3 weeks ago when Jen sent out the draft.
Okay, so I'm going to speak as the, on this body, I represent the public. Public interest group it says, but it's more or less the public. So I'm speaking as a representative of the public, and the only representative of the public at large here. In section A, the changes that were proposed, I would like to see the word within restored, the word existing restored, and restore without increasing the number of residential buildings. In section B, I would like to see all modifications proposed, or my recommendation is to reject them. Section C, in C1, reject the second sentence of the modifications proposed. C2, change one of the dwelling units to the primary dwelling unit. C2, section 2, remove any walls, doors, or barriers that prevent access between the apartments. 3, also there needs to be some oversight of this. As written, the onus is on the homeowner who would be disincentivized to report. The town should have an accountability mechanism written into the ordinance. In C3, return to 800 square feet and 25%. C4, reject the changes. C9, first change is unnecessary.
Wait, slow down, Beth, slow down.
Don't worry, okay. C9, the first change is unnecessary. Reject the part of the second change regarding client traffic. C10, reject the removal. The new C10 is fine. C11, reject this whole proposal. The proposal would allow someone with less than a half an acre of land to build a 1,000 square foot house on their property. There's no contingency for how that would be removed once the accessory property is no longer needed. Section D, the proposal is fine. Section E, Part 1, reject the change. Part 2, reject the change. Part 3, reject the change. Section F is fine. Section G, reject the change proposed. And the new G is reject the changes. Further, there's no explanation in this proposal, nor was there for the previous, is how does this interact with other bodies that not quite zoning, but how does this interact, for example, with the historic district regulations that we have? So I don't have clarification on that. But primarily, I'm extremely concerned about the possibility of somebody building another building on their property without going through the mechanisms of subdividing their property and not having the neighbors chime in about it. It just seems, and 1,000 square feet is a good size house. So this to me goes well beyond an accessory unit, and I'm not in favor of this really at all. So thank you.
Beth, whatever you mentioned just now, it went by very fast. Would you be able to include your comments in Jay's document and send to all, and so that everybody can review and come back to discuss it? Because I know there are some people who are calling by phone, like Desmond.
Sure.
Who have no access to your the document or to understand your comments. So I think if you can send that over, and the zoning commission can also mull over it, and they will discuss again as to what they can and what they cannot compromise on, and they can bring some more explanation on like historic district interaction for accessory DUs and other items that you requested.
Yes, I just put it in the chat, and I can send the document.
Okay. I can't, like, no, I was not requesting like this, but more like in the document. This is a PDF. So, okay, yeah, just send us as a document, and then.
Sure, The document was sent as a PDF.
Yeah.
And I did not see any comments in that PDF. So it's a little hard to give you track changes in a PDF. So I just created a different document, and I'm sure that there are people who can take these changes and compare the documents.
It was sent as a Word document meant for any changes or recommendations to be tracked. So I'm not sure if it was someone transferred it to a PDF at that point, but the far easier way to do this is to make changes within the Word document. I'm happy to resend it back out.
Yeah, I already did the work on this though, so you can take these changes rather than me do that, and they can be added to the document.
I'll send it
Thank
back
you.
out to the group. So everyone's got the Word document so we can make changes in it going forward.
Thank you, Jay. And I don't know why it was said.
Jay, would you relabel that saying that it's the revision copy?
Sure.
Okay, so anybody else has anything to add to this? Looks like nobody has any comments at this time, so we'll make sure that we will incorporate the changes that you suggested. Not, changing the language, but incorporating it as a comment under each section so everybody can see what your comment is. And then zoning commission members will review it. It'll also be referred to the planning commission at some point. So there's a lot of people looking at it with multiple eyes. And hopefully we'll all develop a regulation that is good for all.
So Smith, a question. When we get that Word doc from Jay, is there a time period we have to return that back?
That's a good question. Jay, what's the timeline?
There is no timeline. When we presented this at the last housing partnership meeting, we're working on redoing the zoning regulations as we speak. So, I would encourage the partnership to maybe keep this on the agenda for the following month, if that's something that you all are interested in doing. For maybe anyone else that isn't here, wants to make comment, long story short, there's no rush to get us these comments back.
Could I add to that?
For your next meeting.
We just this past month hired our consultant for the rewrite of zoning all across Stratford. So this document's really critical to that, but that contract is for a year. So we have time. That's why we did a lot of the work we did on zoning was based on us having discussed it on the Stratford Housing Partnership. So we have time. We have to do this right.
Yeah, and Harold, just to add, I think it's a good idea for some of these more controversial maybe changes regarding housing, that if we can do some of the legwork ahead of time, it just makes it easier for the consultant at the end to say, all right, hey, look, we're not changing anything. We're just going to keep it the way it is. Or we're going to make some changes and there's not a ton of work may or may not need to be done. That's yet to be determined, but at least if we can do some of our, have some of these discussions ahead of time, it may make the process a bit more expedited in the long run. So.
Yes, Beth?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that I was opposed to was changing the size of the units. Before it was a maximum of 800 square feet. So now, or 25% of the square footage of the property, whichever is less. And now that has been, the proposal is to increase that to 1,000 square feet or 40% of the square footage of the property, whichever is less. And I really don't know where that came from or what the need for that is. I don't know what the justification for that was.
But Beth, the thing you might not be aware of, if you read all of this, it still has to be conforming to the lot size and to the setbacks.
No, I understood that.
So
Yeah, no. I
they might not be able
understood that,
to.
but still, it's a larger It's a lot.
They might not be able to in most areas put in 1,000 square feet. They might have to go down to 18 to 800 square feet in order to match current zoning.
So just 2 days ago, Beth, I had a, a person who graduated from college come to my office with his mother. And she's a single mother, and he wanted to live on her property and was looking for an ADU. Based on their lot coverage and the lot size, when we looked at the 25% or 800 square feet, whichever smaller, he was only allowed to build 200 square feet. And for him, he would barely get anything in 200 square feet. And I think believe it or not, our office has been receiving a lot of in-person visits and phone calls from residents who have either their grandchildren who graduated or children who have graduated want to come back and live in Stratford because they can take the train to New York, or the seniors who want to downsize and who want their extended family to live with them. And the size is of concern to most of them because they have these, some of them have these lots that they're not perfectly rectangular or square, but L-shaped lots, and there's a lot of room in the back, but they unfortunately cannot do it based on the living floor area of that building that is on that property.
Oh, I understand that, but there are also externalities that are not being taken into account with this. Externalities on neighbors, on people who purchased their property and now could potentially see very large additions. It may conform with setbacks, but still you could have, it's still another building that they weren't counting on when they bought the property. And it can change the feel and look of a neighborhood.
So I don't want to argue with you.
That's my concern, are the externalities for the people who are their current homeowners in Stratford. If what we're talking about is actually building apartment buildings and in places where it makes sense and increasing our housing stock that way, that's a whole different story. But I mean, I own a large property. I own a large house. I could add 1,000 square foot house in my property. That would, I think, have implications on my neighbors.
Yeah, but if you look at 1,000 square foot living floor area and you say 25%, it's 250 square feet. If you say 40%, like said in the regulation, you're only going over by 150, which is not much. It's not going to add too much to the density. Secondly, I mean, you're looking at things right now as they stand on the ground in this point of time. 10 years down the lane, I can assure you that the world is moving differently, and seniors are aging rapidly in this state. Young adults are, the proportion is not increasing as much, and the housing needs would be different. So when we're planning, we're not planning for things that at what they stand as now, but 10 years from now, would even those who invested in their properties would see their property values falling because people are leaving and they can't maintain their properties because there's a lot of things that are, may happen. I don't know. I mean, I'm just, it's looking at the worst case scenario, I guess. Mm-hmm.
That is the worst case scenario, but as a demographer, and if you look at population growth in this country, the demographic pressures for housing are tremendous right now. I just don't think that this is the right way to expand our housing stock, to have such large lots with such large additions or independent homes built onto existing lots with no accountability mechanisms built in. So,
Well, there still is a BZA requirement in this if they have non-conforming issues. So that doesn't change. We really made sure to make sure that happens, that those end up becoming case-by-case decisions. The only thing I would say, Beth, is what we recognized in zoning, and I think Stratford Housing Partnership also, is that we need to find alternatives for people across the board. And an ADU is one way to stabilize our senior populations and our special needs people. So that's my only comment on what we are presenting. We tried to rewrite this in such a way that we could increase our current, I think we're doing about 5 a year ADUs in Stratford. But what we did was we specifically wrote it in such a way that it applies across the whole town. So the 2-acre lots in the north end can also have ADUs, as can the south end.
And they could have yeah. So I didn't disagree with all of it, but there were items that I did disagree with. Okay.
I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Desmond, did you have anything to add? Because I saw that your name was highlighted on the screen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, I'm going to take a hard look at this too. One of the impetus for participation was really us having a strategic look at what's coming down the line in terms of housing and addressing, how do we, I guess, solution that in a way that makes sense today, right? What's coming down the pike. So I appreciated what you mentioned there. And so that's the lens through which I'm going to be looking at the document and just saying, hey, we have an older population that's going to be of a greater proportion maybe in the future. And we have a lot of young people that are graduating and facing housing challenges in terms of cost or space even. And how do we prepare ourselves as a town today? That's what this partnership, I thought, is kind of how I'm looking at it. How do we position ourselves today to strategically, meet that need? And so just wanted to add that's kind of how I'm looking at it. And I look forward to digging into the document a little bit more and, providing my own feedback on it. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add? Well, thank you, Jay, for all the hard work, and Zoning Commission, Harold, and the team for leading this effort. And we'll all take a second look at the document, keeping Beth's comments in mind. And anybody else who wants to add their comments, please insert your comments into the document that Jay would share, and share it with everybody in the group, so we all can take a look at what everyone's response or comment is below the other person's comments.
On the Zoning Commission appreciates your feedback.
Thank you.
Yes, very much. We have taken this very seriously in terms of looking at a lot of the issues. And most of that came out of last year's housing partnership meetings.
So in terms of next steps, I have a question. Is the Zoning Commission looking for an endorsement from the housing partnership, or just an informal discussion?
No, I think the intent, I'm sorry, Harold, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm gonna, basically, the intent was that you would help us with your suggestions so that hopefully we can arrive at something, but we're not the end point. This will eventually go to our consultant, who will then write it based on current state law. So is that okay?
Yeah, and I think that, you may have a longer discussion about, all right, we don't want the apartments to be 1,000 square feet. We like the 800 square feet, and we like the checks and balances of the zoning board. If someone wants to go larger, we'd rather have them go to the zoning board of appeals than provide the flexibility to do larger as of right. So, I think that's the kind of feedback that, even if it comes in a narrative, a letter with not making any real work, and I don't want to tell you how to give the recommendation to us. If it's just a narrative with bullet points, we like these things, we don't like these things, or it could just be, we don't like any of these things, then that's the position that I think that you all need to take. So it's not a real formal, favorable or unfavorable recommendation. It could be just a narrative explaining what you like, what you don't like, things that should be considered, or things that should be scrapped altogether. So
And
I'll leave it. I would leave it to the discretion of the partnership of what form it takes.
And remember what we were trying, when we wrote this specifically, we were trying to say, do we have the administrative people to handle what we don't currently have enough people to handle what's coming in. And this will mean there's another increase in workload in planning and zoning on this. So we tried to do it in such a way that we could make some things take place based on zoning alone, and not everything would have to be massaged. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, when Jen returns, I will talk to her, because I see that there could be potential disagreements in this group among the members themselves, and we all have to come to one agreement on on whatever recommendation letter the group offers. And again, Harold, you are sitting and wearing two hats, and so is Brian. Like, you're sitting on planning and voting on items, but you're also part of the group, and you will be part of the recommendation letter. So,
Yes, and so Smith, I will add,
Mhm.
zoning had discussions about a lot of these points. We argued back and forth about, so we had to come to some compromise in order to say, we're ready to send this on to you.
So I'll talk to Jen about how, what the format would be to arrive at a consensus on this issue, and, should Planning Commission and Zoning Commission chairs, exempt, or are they exempt from this decision, or should they be included in the recommendation, like, whatever format we take, whether we take an informal vote to come to a consensus, or, or a majority vote, I don't know. I have to talk to Jen about this.
My one thought is that maybe if you're having difficulty coming to consensus, then maybe the letter to the zoning commission talks about, maybe it's broken into two sections. One, these are the things that we're receptive to or that we think has potential. And then the second half of the letter is, these are some things that are drawing concern. Just a thought.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea too, because the consultants will fine tune this anyway. So, or maybe we can say we need more examples to demonstrate how this has worked in other communities, something like that. Okay, I think that ends our ADU regulation development discussion. And we are moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Fair Rent Housing Commission establishment. Mayor shared with us an ordinance document 2 months ago, and she said it'll be possibly going before the council in June or July. And she's asked us to review and offer any feedback we have. Has anybody had an opportunity to review it and comment on that?
I'm afraid I don't remember getting it.
Okay, well, we'll have to resend then. Thank you, Jay. So,
I mean, I know that the commission is being established, but was there any information beyond that?
there was a document that was shared 2 months
Okay,
ago,
I'm sorry.
I think in March. So we'll have to resend that, and maybe you can take a look at it, and then we can discuss that again at next month's meeting. Anybody else has anything to add to this?
I don't remember getting it either, Beth. So
Okay,
I think we'll look at it if you'll resend it.
okay. We'll resend it. That brings us to the next item, which is the housing chapter of Plan Stratford discussion. I was hoping to get the final draft ready by May 1st, so this could be reviewed at this meeting. But we are a little bit behind our schedule. Rory, our consultant, said that she would give us a copy of the final draft sometime next week. But once we get that, maybe we can all, like, I'll share it by email and you all can take a look at it and come back with any questions or comments you have in the draft recommendations. Most of the recommendations are from our housing plan, and we also had Glenn as a sub-consultant for a POCD process. So Glenn literally rewrote these strategies into the POCD document. And there were like very few new strategies that were added, considering that this process was fairly recent for the housing plan development. So what we added was more to include some strategies for ADU, for disabled population and for homeless population. But other than that, I think Glenn has covered most of it in the housing plan, and those were just carried over into this document so that we can easily refer to these when we are writing our staff reports for planning and zoning commissions and BZA. Glenn, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think I tried to pick up the work that the Housing Partnership had done on the Affordable Housing Plan and integrate that in. The recommendations in the 2014 POCD, a lot of those were still relevant, and I think now that the Zoning Commission is working on updating the zoning regulations, some of those strategies can move forward there. So I think that the POCD is an advisory document, a visionary document in terms of what we want to try to accomplish. So I tried to provide the framework to support the work of the Housing Partnership and other entities in town. I also turned it over to Fitzgerald FHI Studio because I think they're working on other chapters of the plan and trying to find ways to make sure everything stays integrated was something I thought was important. So I'm excited to see the chapter when it's ready and to see the entire plan.
Thank you, Glenn. So we also had resiliency-related strategies, flooding-related strategies in the housing chapter. I will share the draft with everyone. We are actually planning on posting it on the website because of the size of the document, so that everybody, including the residents, can take a look at it. And we'll have at least 2 months before we actually adopt the plan, because by state statute, we have 65 days review that has to be conducted by the state agencies. So we're going to refer this plan to the state agencies once the draft is ready. And then that review period will happen simultaneously when town residents and boards and commission members are reviewing the document. And any comments you have, unless they're not major, we can incorporate them into this document, and then it's brought before the council and the planning commission.
So Smitha, may I add a comment?
Mm-hmm.
Can you make sure that they are asked them to split that document into downloadable sizes, so we don't end up with a 400-page document that most of us can't download or open on our computers? If they can just save it as PDF A, PDF B, PDF C, then we can actually download it onto our home computer networks. That's one of the problems with all these giant reports. A lot of people don't read them because they're limited reading it online on the town site.
Yes, I will tell Rory to not only upload that as a full document, but also as individual chapters. So based on which chapter you would like to review, you can click on it. And I have seen and reviewed every single chapter, and they're not more than 15 pages long. So they're simple to print and review and include comments, but the whole document, including the introduction, implementation chapter, public engagement piece, is roughly like 150 pages or 200 pages long. So I hear you. If you want to download the full document, it will take time and you may get lost in reviewing, but I will advise her to actually break it down by chapters.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I know that's extra work.
Yeah, we talked at our technical advisory committee meeting where department heads and mayor was present, that, about the size of the document, and asked if they would rather want to see a smaller condensed version of the plan being printed. But everybody, said they wanted the full document with all the information so that they can refer to it when they're writing grants. And now, this is something that they've participated in and they know what their priorities are, so they just didn't want a condensed version. So we are just going to publish the whole document with the individual chapters also as PDFs.
The step forward. Thank you.
Yep. That's it about housing chapter. And are there any other items that anybody wants to talk today? It looks like, yes, Beth.
No, I didn't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're ready to adjourn the meeting. It is now 12:40 p.m. and may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Beth. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned. Enjoy your long
Yes.
weekend.